I am not a historian, but neither are you. So, how about we the people learn this stuff together? Welcome to US 101. This one's gonna get just a little personal. I tell you what, man, I'll say this about Donald Trump as president. It is an embarrassment of riches with this guy. You guys have no idea how many topics I wanted to cover for today's episode based on things his administration did in 1 week. Should I discuss the Logan Act, something that was passed back in 1799 by John Adams, based on Trump's former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn and his recent resignation? Should I go over a list of people that withdrew their nominations to be a part of the presidential cabinet, based on Andrew Puzder and his withdrawing of his nomination for Secretary of Labor? Should I go over how Trump and his administration's connection to Russia is slowly and eerily becoming somewhat similar to the Watergate scandal? As fun as all those would be to cover, and trust me, there would be a rollicking good time on my end, there is one thing that happened this past week that stuck out to me more than most, and that's what I want to talk to you about on today's episode. Recently, Trump tweeted out the following statement: "The fake news media, failing New York Times, NBC News, ABC, CBS, CNN, is not my enemy. It is the enemy of the American people." Fake news. The phrase of the goddamn year. The media, which is beyond dishonest, is doing its best to provide United States citizens a false narrative of our president. And luckily, we have Trump, a man who can see through all of these nefarious actions. I mean, after all, if the media is doing everything that it possibly can to make Trump look foolish, then it has to be fiction, right? I mean, our president himself tweeted something about this. He brought this to the forefront when he said, "Any negative polls are fake news." I am honored that we, the American people, have a president that will stand up to the vile press. A press, mind you, that has absolutely no right to deliver any information to us, regardless of how much investigating, fact-checking, and research they may have done to make sure the story was 100% correct. A press that enjoys far too much liberty. A press, mind you, that former President Richard Nixon once described as, quote, "the enemy." The press is the enemy. Write that on the blackboard 100 times and never forget it. See that? Nixon and Trump, two presidents, by the way, that have labeled the press the enemy. Oh, and let's not forget John Adams, the second president, one of the founding fathers, back in 1798, passing the Sedition Act. You remember the Sedition Act, right? It punished those that would dare to print, quote, "false, scandalous, and malicious," end quote, material about the government or anyone in the government. It would punish them with either fines or jail time. So how about we take a look at what some other presidents have said about the press? I mean, we already have 3 going against them, right? Which means if those 3 commanders-in-chief already don't look upon the press with great joy, I'm sure other presidents have to feel the same way. Ooh, how about another quote from John Adams, just to help bolster this argument a bit more, give it a bit more muscle. This one was found in 1780, and it comes from the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, which Adams was the principal author of, by the way. He says in that Constitution, quote, "The liberty of the press is essential to the security of freedom in a state. It ought not, therefore, to be restrained in this Commonwealth." That's Adams? Sedition Act, John Adams? My John Adams? No, impossible. Okay, how about Thomas Jefferson? Thomas Jefferson, right? I mean, author of the Declaration of Independence. Clearly, the man knew what he was talking about when talking about the press, obviously. And there's a quote that he had about the press that comes from 1787, where he said, quote, "The basis of our government being the opinion of the people, the very first object should be to keep that right. And were it left to me to decide whether we should have a government without newspapers or newspapers without a government, I should not hesitate a moment to prefer the latter." Et tu, TJ? You're on the side of the press too? And you're on Rushmore? How dare you? All right, Jefferson, turning your back on me. I see what's up. How about your boy James Madison? He'll know what the deal is, huh? Smart motherfucker. He authored the Bill of Rights, for God's sake. And I got the perfect quote from Madison, okay? In 1798, he wrote about John Adams' Sedition Act, and he said that it is, quote, "a power not delegated by the Constitution, but on the contrary, expressly and positively forbidden by one of the amendments thereto, a power which more than any other ought to produce universal alarm, because it is leveled against that right of freely examining public characters and measures." What the Madison, you're supposed to be on my side, man. You're supposed to back me up in this argument. Okay, there's got to be some other presidents that have said things about the Franklin Delano Roosevelt. If in other lands, the press and books and literature of all kinds are censored, we must redouble our efforts here to keep them free. Obama? A free press helps make a nation stronger and more successful, and it makes us leaders more effective because it demands greater accountability. Thanks, Obama. John F. Kennedy? Without debate, without criticism, no administration and no country can succeed. And that is why our press was protected by the First Amendment. Not primarily to amuse and entertain, but to inform, to arouse, to reflect, to state our dangers and our opportunities, to indicate our crises and our choices, to lead, mold, educate, and sometimes even anger public opinion. Hang on. What did he say? Our press is protected by the First Amendment. What's the First Amendment say again? Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Well, there it is, guys. How can the press be the enemy of the American people if in the Constitution it says that the American government will not stop the press from doing its job? How could the press be the enemy of the American people when right down the street from the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. is the Newseum, which is a giant museum that is dedicated to telling the history of the press in the United States. Not only that, but on the side of the building, the First Amendment is printed right on it. Now, I'm not standing here and saying that every single president has always been in favor of the press, okay? I'm sure that there have been plenty of times that presidents have cursed the press for calling them out on things they did or didn't do. But that's the press's job. It is the press's job to question. It is their job to find the facts, and it is their job to present their findings to us, the American people. Could you imagine, think of this for a minute. Could you imagine if our press, if our media was controlled entirely by the government? All the information that we would be getting would be what they wanted us to know. Nothing more, nothing less. And this is not a crazy thought. This is actually happening in some other countries. Look at North Korea, perfect example. Trump's tweet really got to me because since 2004, I've worked in the media and I've been a journalist myself for nearly 10 years. Most of my friends, most of my close friends are journalists and they work for a whole slew of different publications. And if somebody were to come along and tell them that they were the enemy of the public and they could only report certain things and anything else that they report would be fake or would be false, they wouldn't stand for it. The press is not the enemy. The press is our ally. As a matter of fact, in the Newseum in Washington, D.C., there's a wall that has the following words carved on it. News is history in the making. Journalists provide the first draft of history. Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or of the press. Write that on the blackboard 100 times. And never forget it. And that, my fellow Americans, is it for this episode of US 101. Thank you guys so much for watching, and thanks to all of you that have been subscribing to the channel, leaving comments, watching the videos. Guys, I can't thank you enough for helping this channel to grow and for checking out the videos and hopefully becoming burgeoning history buffs, man. Again, I love making these videos for you, and I really hope you enjoy watching them. As always, you can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/USA History 101, and now you can find us on Twitter as well. Twitter.com/USA History 101. You can follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook, follow us on YouTube. We are slowly growing our social media presence, and I would love for all of you to come along with us. And on that note, guys, I will see you next Tuesday for an all-new episode of US 101. Until then, we are all done. And to all you burgeoning journalists out there, keep doing what you're doing, because you are writing the first draft of history. See you next week.